My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are so excited to be kicking off 2024 with all of you here to celebrate our monthly reading series, Meet Me There. It is an intergenerational poetry, fiction, and creative nonfiction experience curated by genderqueer poet and sound artist Samuel Ace. Writers exploring genre and gender boundaries are a special focus of this series. This event takes place on the second Thursday of each month, and some months our readings take place in person, some are virtual. This month, we are excited to be straddling many geographies. We were just talking in the green room about how we are coming together in space-time from many places. But Samuel Ace is right here with us in Metro Atlanta. And his most recent books are Our Weather, Our Sea, Meet Me There, Normal Sex and Home in 3 Days Don't Wash, and the chapbook What Started This Mess. Ace is the recipient of the Estrella Lesbian Writers Award and the Firecracker Alternative Book Award in Poetry, as well as a repeat finalist for the Lambda Literary Award and the National Poetry Series. Recent work can be found in Ex-Puritan, Poetry, We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetry, PEN America, Best American Experimental Poetry, and many other journals and anthologies. A book-length poetic essay, I Want to Start by Saying, is forthcoming soon from the Cleveland University Poetry Center. And Sam is going to introduce our beautiful poets tonight, T.C. Tolbert and Genesis B, but I just want to say welcome to both of you. Thank you both so much for being here. I know we have many fans of both of y'all's work in the audience, so it's great to have you. And for everybody who is watching virtually with us, I want you to feel free to shout out where you're watching from, and also feel free to ask questions, and we'll work those into the conversation. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Sam. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, ER, and I'm very grateful that you, Genesis, and TC are here tonight. Just absolute thanks to both ER, Anderson, and Dartrisha Rollins, who, and also the entire Charis crew for their leadership in bringing this particular series to fruition, and also the thousands of events hosted here at Charis Books. You know, Charis is such a place of resistance and calm. Every day for me, and I know for all of us, the news brings just a new horror to the forefront of certainly our screens. And Charis provides, I've been in Atlanta, I've just been aware about how much they've provided a safe space for clarity, nuance, honesty, everything that I, as a queer trans person in this, trying to navigate this world, need in my life. So thank you. If you haven't done so, check out their website. You can buy tonight's author's books there, and also view the event calendar. Their YouTube channel is full of incredible recordings of almost every single event, including the Meet Me There series. So check them out if you haven't. So I always write a short introduction to our readers tonight, and include long bios. I'm not going to give long bios. You can get both of these incredible authors and performers at their websites. But I thought about just the bios of these two folks tonight. And although Meet Me There is a series that features queer and trans writers, and here we are celebrating two wonderful new books, these incredible books, People Not Things, by Genesis B, which is here and can be purchased through Charis, and The Quiet Practices, which won the Chad Walsh Chapbook Prize from the Beloit Poetry Journal. Incredible books, and please get them, read them, and they're cause for huge celebration. But I wanted to ask myself and all of us what we're doing here, and what are the poets doing, specifically these two poets. And I'm thrilled tonight that we're featuring two poets whose hours on this planet and in this one life we have are not living any way that kind of tired, often straight white male trope of the writer sitting alone at their desk for every waking hour of the day, living inside their heads, spinning some kind of lyric, but often separate, and to the detriment of their health, their bodies, their families, their community. These two writers, along with their poems, are using their time not only to write, but to explore other art forms. And perhaps as importantly, both are actively living and doing service as artists, activists in their communities, giving back to the world in extraordinary and tangible ways. At the same time, I consider their written work also as a form of service, sometimes a call to action, sometimes a prayer. So it just brought to mind, thinking about these two and writing in general, what is the writer's life in this time where images of children buried in rubble, victims of rape, of indiscriminate murder are front and center in our realities every day. What we're seeing on our screen is not new. Genesis, in a recent interview, says, quote, "There comes a point where a nation has to either acknowledge the brutality of the past and figure out a way to heal, or deny the brutality of the past, deny its history, and allow the vision to rip it apart." The history of this country has been brutal, as have the histories of so many countries around the world. So how are these poets acknowledging the past and figuring out ways not only for themselves to heal, but for their communities to heal as a whole? Along with their work as a poet and writer, Genesis B is a musician, a painter, a public speaker, an activist, a performance artist whose voice and work have been featured in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and many other high-profile outlets. But as an act of healing, they've used their voice and their visual work to enter community, to bring awareness, and to literally change the lives and minds of so many. If you haven't done so already, I suggest you go to their website to understand the full breadth of their work, in which poetry is a vital limb inside what I think is a vast, multifaceted ecosystem of service and healing. TC is an award-winning poet who served as Poet Laureate of Tucson, Arizona since 2017, and as such was awarded one of the first Academy of American Poets Laureate fellowships. He's fulfilled that role in many ways, one of which has been to create a series of writing workshops with trans, non-binary, and queer plus community members across Tucson, and now across the world, called Trans Space. That free weekly workshop, now affiliated with the LGBTQI Institute at the University of Arizona, has run continuously to this day. In recent years, TC's service to the community has taken on a very physical form. TC has become a craftsperson, using his body and his hands to learn the technical skills to work with wood and other materials. He's learned to become a timber frame home builder, bringing community together through something called the Outlaw Project in Tucson to build a home for trans women of color. He's also renovating a home as transitional housing for Mariposas Sin Fronteras, an organization that provides solidarity to LGBTQ people in detention through visits, letters, bond, fundraising, case support, advocacy, and post-detention hospitality. So I did put together some images. We're going to hear the words of these incredible poets, but I thought you should see them and the work they do in other parts of their lives. So just put some images together to show you what they are. So let's see here. Here we go. First, Genesis B. This is Genesis in a performance that really brought her into the national spotlight, where she draped herself in the Confederate flag. It was when Mississippi was trying to put the image of the Confederate flag into the state flag, along with a noose, and that image became viral and really took her into a platform where she's been able to really speak to the devastation of that, and ultimately resulted from her work and so many others of that actually not happening in Mississippi, that image not occurring and not coming into the flag. And I'm going to show some pictures of Genesis paintings, which are just quite amazing and are scattered throughout the book, the new book. And it's just a few. It's just a sampling of, just to give you an idea of the lives of these poets, which are so rich and cover so much ground. This is TC in the timber frame part of this home that he and the whole community really has come together just to begin to build. And this is volunteers who are working on this building. And just a sign of a note about what happened. 31 people, 10,000 pounds of debris removed from that place. Magical community building for the Outlaw Project. And this is from an invitation to come for a volunteer day at Casa Mariposa. One of TC's wooden mesquite slabs, which are gorgeous, and an advertisement for Trans Spaces Expanding. This is an old one, but there is one going now currently. So I'm sure TC would be happy to share that URL for anybody out there who's listening. So that was just a taste of who these people are. And I just wanted you all to see that. And there's just so much more to the lives of these two poets that I could celebrate. And I bring this up because even in a celebration of their poetry, just person's a poet or that person's, I don't know, a musician, but that just doesn't fit for these folks. I have a 2.5-year-old child, and I've been watching the way categories start to form in their minds, their language, their understanding of the world. They just love to organize things. They love order. But at the same time, they enjoy tearing things apart once they've been built. So our brains seem to be structured in such a way to crave categories. But I know in my parenting, my co-parents' parenting, we've been trying to expand those categories as they form, that even to the point like red and yellow together can create orange. That's dark, that's light, that's bright or dull, or that blue and red together have the possibility to create all shades of purple. So life, so gender, like these lives, the poets we celebrate tonight complicate simple description and category. Genesis has chosen, as I've said, to scatter images of their paintings throughout their new book. These paintings read to me as direct emotional response to language, a place that language, with all of its attendant meaning, can never quite reach. In the quiet practices, TC writes letter after letter to Melissa, the name he was given at birth. As such, he reckons with the past, not necessarily as reconciliation, but always as question and always as love. No matter how changed we are, through transition or age, our bodies, our skin are perhaps not unlike how furniture, TC says in a poem, is always, quote, still in conversation with the forest. Let's now hear from them. First, we'll hear Genesis, then TC, followed by a discussion. If you have questions or comments, please just put them in the chat. We hope to have the chance to answer them following the reading. Let's welcome Genesis B.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and so good to hear more about both of you and learn more about both of you today. So People Not Things is a poetry and painting book, but it's part of a larger umbrella. It's actually, so I like to build gingerbread houses, and I like to leave crumbs for my audience. And if anyone who's new to my journey, welcome. Is now our journey. And People Not Things is actually a philosophy. It's a philosophy and practice that I developed. And the poetry, the music, all of these multi things that I do are little breadcrumbs that lead to this philosophy that I've been developing since that protest, Samuel, that you talked about in 2016. So I'm just going to share the philosophy and not talk too much about it. I just released it about a month ago, and it's a living, breathing document. If you have any contributions at all, please just hit me up, DM me, because it's about all of our experiences as a human community and how do we realign within ourselves and let that radiate to our community. So People Not Things is a very simple truth. It's an ancient truth. I didn't make it up. It means that we are all complex human beings worthy of dignity, first and foremost, before we are these labels, before we are trans, Black, white, rich, poor, whatever category is either imposed on us or we impose on ourselves. These are just, characteristics of us. And differences are beautiful. But unfortunately, we've been taught that differences are a means to exploit and a means to fear, rather than a means to celebrate our differences. So it's an unlearning and a reprogramming, a deprogramming of that type of mentality and bringing it back to human love and connection. So this first piece, each piece has a painting, and Samuel showed this painting last. It's called The Watchers. The Watchers, and I'm going to read the poem for The Watchers. Free Palestine. Want peace for them. I want peace for Israel too. The Watchers. I'm screaming peace in the middle of a war, like falling in love in the middle of divorce. See, digital outrage, don't stop tanks, removal of millions, destroyer of lives. I'm screaming peace in the middle of a war. Black soot fills my lungs like hypocrisy kills the conscience. Young cries drown my voice. They say, already we are gone. 'Cause one life lost is far too many. The words on paper cannot hold peace. The treaty is falsified and the ink ain't even dried. So mute the mother's cry. Continue on with life. Selective in your outrage, obedient to the mob. I'm screaming peace in the middle of a war, sending cosmic forces to battle the four vultures. They leave us meager portions while hoarding the resources. Behold the pale horses who ride into the horizon, realizing they were lies as we strive to rebuild lives. The Watchers. I actually wrote that poem after the public execution of George Floyd, and I sat in my backyard and I wonder, what would I do if I was there? Would I stand there? Would I be too afraid to do anything because I'll get shot? Would I tape with my phone to bear witness? Would I don't know, if I had a sniper rifle, go up on a building where I'm not detected and shoot at the car to distract it? I went through all the scenarios in my head and realized that we are watchers. Screaming peace in the middle of a war until we are doers. We'll just be watchers. This next piece is called Assess the Exits. Double doors exit behind, push to exit function. Single door entrance ahead, pull to exit function. Women's bathroom, no windows, no exit. Assume kitchen has a back door to an alley or a trash. Every single room I enter, no matter how familiar or how jubilant, I assess the exits. I assess the demographic, a cautionary routine you may or may not follow depending on how your privilege or safety strikes you. As I've been attacked as a woman of color, of queerness, because my companion is gorgeous, because my afro is bold, because my swag holds no apologies. In my nation, shooters mark bullets for those they've never met. And bullets are king here. Their reign is uncontested. So I enter the room, radiant and poised, ready to love and laugh and eat and hear stories, but not before I assess the exits. And again, that poem is called Assess the Exits. It's on page 8 of my new poetry book, People Not Things. And Samuel, please just give me a note with time, because I can't keep the time. I've always been really bad at that. I was supposed to do a 30-minute keynote and end up doing an hour and 30 minutes till they literally had to go on stage to get my attention. I just have no concept of time. Okay. I think y'all will like this one. It's called Red Pills. I don't know if y'all familiar with red pill ideology, but I want you to keep in mind and how we are all complicit in things like this. Red pills. Weak follow the weak, sniffing each other, inhaling the scent of false superiority, circling misinformation, momentum of confirmation bias and conspiracy theory, fake and failed intellectualism. No one reads books here. Consuming heaps of propaganda, never fact-checking or comparing sources, little men seek approval and advice from littler men with big platforms, dancing in circles of misery and despair, preying on young, impressionable minds who've never known the love of a woman, wallowing in victimhood and self-pity, delusioned by the promise of entitlement and power for doing nothing except being male or clinging to the false identity of white, the stench of entitlement of being male. The inhaling of fumes becomes stronger and stronger until one breaks from the human centipede in hopes of any ounce of attention, a break from obscure existence within a dusty bedroom, daily routine of trolling comment sections, the culmination of insignificance, lost in arbitrary identity, morality, and code. Weak and unstable, ever-changing depending who is speaking, unable to stand on personal power, no clue of self-determination, a prison of self-exaggeration. Fire fanned by the flames of rhetoric becomes an eruption of gunfire upon the innocent, basking in their skewed morality, faux Christianity, a red pill-induced incel fantasy, where men are meant to dominate, whites are meant to subjugate. The principles upon which a nation was built, the myth of superiority, shining an unbearable light on his shortcomings, his lack of ability, mediocrity, a missed opportunity of power, and the strength of his ancestors, traded for a chance to assimilate to a fabricated culture. Assimilate to the ranks, false promises of inheritance, unwilling or unable to connect with, to cultivate the beautiful spirit he harbors, the untapped talent he possesses, choosing instead a desperate attempt to leave any mark on this earth. Can you recognize the consequence of a warped society in which we are all complicit? That's called Red Pills. And it's about red pill ideology, y'all, and how it's easy to point fingers at toxic masculinity and patriarchy and all these things. But a lot of us perpetuate these same things. And America's built on this. So of course they're going to have people who think like this, you know, and grasp for that last amount of power that's fading from them. Just to hold some compassion for them too, is what I'm asking. How are we doing on time? Good? Okay. Page 96. This is a really short one. The Angry Alchemist. this is what the painting looks like. And these are much bigger paintings they're just tiny because the page tiny. The Angry Alchemist. The older I became, I understood the systems on which they dissolve us. I'm angry they tried to kill Leon, my friend. I'm angry that a puny man put the weight of the world on Mr. Floyd's neck. I'm angry about what they did to my Big Daddy Clyde. To transform anger into purpose is alchemy. To transform anger into love was impossible until I did. Well, those are the 4 poems I had selected. I didn't know about the time, so I can read another couple short ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Please, yeah, 5 minutes or more. Go ahead, Genesis.
Okay, cool. Thank you. My girlfriend just came into the room, so if y'all hear some rustling or me telling her to be quiet a little bit, that's what it is. Babe, can you be a little quiet? It's okay. I'm almost finished. Autumn leaves. Autumn leaves don't die in vain. There's beauty in their pain. When I was a little child running wild, they crumbled underneath my delicate touch. The empty branches were far too much. My sensitive eyes would fill with tears, curious to why they had to die. The ground was covered by the bodies of the dead, everything so gloomy and dark red. It was my first lesson in death. My brothers and I would make these huge piles of them. We'd climb up a tree and jump into the soft beds of death. Young life and laughter billowing from beneath the bodies, birthing joy and warm nostalgia and memories of the smell of dusk and whatever mama was cooking. As the street lights came on, illuminating faint orange against the dim periwinkle sky. Autumn leaves don't die in vain. There's beauty in their pain. I ain't free. These little marks that you see, they're in every single painting. They're called my signature barrier strokes. They represent the barriers that keep us from aligning within and aligning with each other. They're also in the background here. These are barrier strokes found in every single painting, and they remind myself that every day I wake up, I have to make a decision and a choice to remove the barriers from myself when I interact with any new human being, and just look at them as a complex human being worthy of dignity. I don't care who they are or if they upset me or this and the other. It's a reminder, so that's what those are. And if you, we'll go back to this so you can see, you see they're at the top. They're in every single painting. All right, I ain't free. The illusion of freedom is far more dangerous than jail cells and cramped cages. My tax dollars killed a child yesterday. I ain't free, neither is she. And my freedom is dependent on the imprisonment of another. I ain't free, neither is he. And I'll just do another short one. I think I'm just kind of flipping through pages now. Okay, I'll do the last one. It's called Stone Roses, very short. Stone Roses, one of my middle names is Rose. My name is Genesis Israeli Rose Schmitz Briggs. That's my full name. And a rose is very delicate, and this is an ode to everyone on this call, and TC and Samuel, especially artists who we strive not to harden. We strive not to let our petals get burnt and singed as we go throughout life. And our sensitivity and our inner child is tested with all of these atrocities and everything that we see and that we take in. So Stone Roses is, I've been hardened a bit just through life, but at the very core, I'm just still a sensitive little gentle rose. Stone Roses. A rose doesn't grow from regret and shame. It needs a lot of dirt and a lot of rain. Put me in a glass, put me on display, cut me at the root, let my blood drain. That's Stone Roses, y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, thank you, Genesis. It's so wonderful to hear your heart. Thank you. Thank you. People, not things. Thanks. Now we will hear from T.C. Tolbert.
Y'all, that was amazing. Thank you, Genesis. I feel, well, it's hard not to get emotional. Sometimes I'm just so overwhelmed by like all the beauty that this it is, a sort of private practice of just like being with the page. Like Sam was saying, I don't live my whole life with just me and the page. And I don't know that really anyone does, but it's not something I strive for. And there is this way that this little private thing has made a way for so much beauty in my life that I really wouldn't have otherwise, in connection. And like, this is such a great example of like how fucking lucky, like I was just a nerdy kid, and being a nerdy kid got me to be able to listen to Genesis and Sam talk tonight. Like, that's amazing. That's wild. So thank you. And I have a quick question before I start reading. I've never been on a crowdcast before. Is there a way to see the audience too, or I just can't? I'm just
unfortunately not.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
feel kind of removed from everybody, and that's so weird. I'm like, I mean, I know Addie and JJ and Ray are here, which is fantastic. All people I love very much. Anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that I have no idea who else is here other than those three people and the three people that I've been looking at on screen, and I love everyone, so that's awesome. You do not need to see this hair. I know your hair, Ray, and I actually do need to see your hair. So Genesis, there are so many overlaps, with like where your like mind and heart are going and have gone, and where I feel like I'm also sort of searching and feeling around, and I'm so excited to get your book. And I wanted to read this very brand new poem, which I had no intention of reading, but until you read those last several poems, and I was like, oh, this is so in conversation with that. I've started this practice. I've been away from writing actually for a couple of years. I just kind of needed to not be on the page like at all, and I've started doing this just very small daily. I write the same number of syllables as aligns with the date. And so today is the 11th. So my poem will go one syllable, one syllable, one syllable. So 111, 2, 0, 2, 4. So it's going to be a very skinny poem today, if that makes any sense. And I mean, they've been real skinny, all because January always starts with 1. But anyway, I wanted to read the poem. Oh, and the other option, so I can write from the date, or I can write from the number of the place where I'm writing from. So my address is 2665. So that could be the syllable count if I'm just like, I need some more room. So anyway, this poem, the structure, I wrote it on January 4th. And so the structure is 104 and then 2665 for where I was when I was writing it. I remember her out breath. I remember her out breath. This genocide costs us in taxes only 0.4%. And when I learned that that's literally, it's both all like that equates to many, many, many dollars, and also the way that, like, shouldn't I be paying more for all the horror that, like you said, I'm complicit, like, you know, like that we're all complicit in, and really 0.4%. That's all I'm paying. It's like, of course I can go about my daily life and turn it off, you know? Like, anyway. I was horrified. In addition to being horrified. Right? Like, it just goes on and on. Anyway, so that was January 4th's poem. I want to share my screen. Do that. And I think I'll actually start by showing a video that is one of my poems. It's one of me reading my poems, but it was also, I was very lucky in that Arizona Public Media folks here did a small sort of video where they were also filming me doing some woodworking. And I feel so honored that they did this, but it also feels like a good segue into my poems. So. This is what you are missing, Melissa. Dust turned to waves in the desert. Okra coming up 2 months too late. A forward-breaking gate opening into someone else's field. I walk by a window and I don't understand how little I see you. But so clearly, the wasp backing out of a hole inside a long, dead tree. When we were children, we lived with our grandparents, and I remember, without sadness mostly, the sound of tires screeching into the street. The porch light welcomes whatever intercepts it. I praise insistence. I kiss my love because our best friend died when we were 5 years old, a brain tumor, and then again at 7, 11, 17, 43. Bodies killing themselves by growing beyond their own capacity. I'm building a bed for our visitors. It's infuriating how little I understand about rejoining wood already broken, piece by piece. Anticipate everything, I hear God saying to no one. I'm still listening when you stop for a moment, breathing in your sleep. I'm recognizable now as a part of the man who made me. Every man is a suspect. Inside my own mouth, I'm annoyed by who I cannot seem to be. Do you miss this, Melissa? Every part of our body is ash, aching to be reminded it is ash. Unlike fire, reaching through the face of every forest in order to be incited by wind or offered some relief. I've learned to flinch by standing absolutely still. It isn't death exactly living without you. The purpose of a rope is to borrow someone else's strength. That's why I'm calling you. When I pray, I hear nothing so clearly as our new voice, singe-scoured and full of disbelief. It's so intense. Yeah, so like Sam mentioned, and like that video makes apparent, a lot of my recent work is very much in conversation with Melissa, my birth name, and it's been well, I mean, I'm assuming that will just continue on forever because it's just a fact of my existence that I'm always in conversation with her, and in the way that I in some ways, I think we all are always in conversation with who we have been and who we could be. I don't think it's particular to trans folks, but I guess we get more leeway to talk about it more openly or something. I don't know. So I do. And let me share my screen because now I would like to share the pages of the, so you can see the poems themselves. Oh, look, there it is. 1/4/24. I remember her out-breath. This genocide costs us in taxes only 0.4%. But that was not actually the page I wanted to share with you. So I'll stop sharing that one and go to the other one. There it is. Oh, this was an issue earlier. I have to, sorry, 1 second. This is a technical thing because of the full screen. I have to now exit out of that. There it is. Y'all are able to see that text? Okay. So it's kind of like so many things with poetry, this wonderful synchronicity. Genesis, you were talking about toxic masculinity and how that like would obviously show up in so many expected places, but also how it could show up in places that we maybe wouldn't expect it, because it is just really in the water we drink and in the air we breathe. And it's certainly something that I feel like I've grappled with, both pre-transition when I was really identifying as a dyke and as a queer woman, and sort of struggling what sort of masculinity do I put on, do I take on, do I want, and then now that I'm in this embodiment, what kind of masculinity do I portray, and how do I embody the love that I want to exist and be. And so this poem is grappling with that, and you can see down the center, or I hope you can see down the center, there is the word masculinity, and I put that word, I guess it's maybe a word I made up, but I put it down the center, and with this challenge to myself to really focus on, if I live in this masculine space, and I'm also interested in what is, I guess, the in-between, like how do I embody the in-between, knowing that I pass in the ways that I do, and how can I sort of grapple with that in language in a way that makes me also just pay more attention to who I am and how I show up in the world. So that's this poem. In our lifetimes, 40% of trans people will attempt suicide. I did. I am. Men could not see me as one of them, and what can I be but thankful? I was a girl, and for that I was never given a gun. A word alongside another word placed in God's mouth incorrectly may be slower, but no less direct. If Melissa, is she apologizing for all the names she's learned to sharpen her body somehow into a kind of relief from that fact? What I know of logic comes from being touched by a corpse flower, kneeling to that which promises us injury and fluorescence. You until you are holy, you until you are not. Every day I depend on how we language me, Melissa understands that between her I sleep like a shovel, like a saw blade, still between hands wants to turn, wants something difficult to cut. What I want is to hear someone I loved tell me not to die from my own tongue. Tell me the passing itself is holy, a grief hymn no God would want to sing without us. The invisible parts of my body are not the only ones I want to know love. I repeat, I repeat, I repeat the prayer I am most afraid of. Why did you not protect her? Why cannot the day be longer? Any day we are not required to know more absence than we know love. May yes come. May I live through all the no, all the yes that she was. Dear Melissa, physicists say we change an object simply by turning our attention to it, as if it were possible to address passing. I, too, am afraid of who we become when we see. I am a grandson only when we are eating at Panera. One of us is lying always about her particular hunger. I love the children outside of me counting to 30 while covering their eyes. Which of our bodies has made me? An ancestor, a sacrifice to be in the company of another. Each day across my ongoing, I haul the husk of her. Fire towers are designed for distance viewing, and I am right here, othering you into the next life. Call me cover when you don't know who I could be, times psychological and legal assault. No one is listening to ice become water, burying you to keep us alive. I'm going to skip some of these. And I think I will do this. What I really want to know is how rough, Melissa. The leaves below the shredded cup of the aster's face need to be before it changes species, from showy aster to willow to rush. Eurybia radula being the name of what I thought I was seeing, fingers first, reading the neck through touch. A kindness of soft needles. Much like the shot I give myself once a week now, having increased the gauge exponentially, which has the inverse effect on the amount of skin I am required to surrender in order to wake up in a body I was told could not live in this world and be loved. Small is not a fair synonym for soft. Naming you, I have found another way to send my body back in time to claim how she wants to be touched. It's been over 3 weeks and I still can't find the face of the bird that threatens music, silence, whatever you want to call it, when a well of metal triangles is wrung underwater and poured from the familiar little mouth of a ghost. Every morning I want to know without drama, really, how many things I will kill today. A question of attention, an experiment of turning God into my body, learning to live in the could mean of pine broken light. When I hid you, Melissa, I became every man who tells a woman she would be more safe if only she would keep herself inside. A hive of mercies we were backhanded into, unknowingly praying, we wanted to unlearn how to pray. I am almost ashamed I could not name it. How little pleasure I feel when I touch things only because I am afraid to be touched. Because of time, I'm just going to jump down to this very last. I would love to read that, but I'm not going to. Skip, skip, skip. Dear, this is how I remember your body. Ocean drawn and blood stained, incrementally enclosed by nomenclature. The long tucked wind waiting to be thrown through the herd of the mouth. A stone-shaped tongue splitting from and into the familiar ghost inside. It is hard to say how much I miss you. Our disappearance is only one part of our bodies worth singing about. That's it.
Just gorgeous, just beautiful. Thank you, TC, and thank you, Genesis. Really just beautiful. So here we are. Gosh, what a beautiful night. I feel so lucky. Yeah, so lucky to be here with both of you. And please, audience, whoever you are out there, it's hard. I agree with TC not seeing you all, but please, if you have questions or thoughts or comments, please put them in the chat. This is just a discussion between all of us. TC, Genesis, feel free to ask each other questions. I guess I'll just start us off. We talked, or I certainly did, and you both have alluded to your work outside of the written word. I'd like to know, given all that you do, how both of you have come back to the page, and what that space is for you in relation perhaps to everything else.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but what comes to my mind when you ask it is I stepped away from, I started with poetry at a very young age, like 5 or 6. And then by age 10, I went into hip hop. I became a hip hop artist. for my very much entire life. I still do rap and release music depending on what's going on. I just released a viral piece called Freestyle Palestine about what's going on with our brothers and sisters over there and siblings. I just recently kind of collected all my poems from my childhood and teen years and then submitted a manuscript. And they was like, yeah, let's do it. Can you write 100 more? I was like, okay. So the poetry has always been a part of me, but I wouldn't say deviated because hip hop is poetry, but I moved more to the musical and the more song structured poetry my entire life. And you all probably noticed that in my rhythm, in the way that I present it, it's very, could be a song, right? If it's certain lines are repeated. So that hip hop and music is reflected now in the way that I write my poetry. So they kind of, are distant cousins.
I hear that.
Yeah,
Very much.
totally. Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely, like I mentioned, have had big breaks from the page, and some of those were because a lot of people, because I know the people, at least in the chat, know that I was in a car accident and it really impacted my ability to write, and for many years, and still does. Like I can't, I just can't sit and write like I used to, and so it's really completely changed, who I am. But it also, admittedly, there's this way that sometimes poetry and teaching poetry gets then sort of shoved into this like academic world that that has its beautiful moments. I don't want to, act like there's not a lot of beauty and possibility there, and there's also just a lot of like bullshit, and a way of sort of it's a way it feels like sometimes, not always, sometimes of sort of forgetting, or just sort of theorizing about the world as opposed to participating in it, and I was very I guess I felt kind of sickened by that, so I needed a break from the page also because it just felt like I don't want to participate in that way, but I didn't know how to have my own private practice without it also being like a career of teaching in academia. It was just very confusing, and so I'm very much creeping back to the page. I'm not a like, I don't feel the need to do it the way that I did it before, which is kind of exciting, and of course it's like, I don't know, it can be scary too, and you said something at the beginning, Sam, about I think you said, is it a call to action or a prayer? And I wrote that down because I think they can be the same thing. I think a call to action can be a prayer, or a prayer can be a call to action. But also, I mean, I think writing for me, it's sort of at its best, if I'm really doing it and paying attention to it, it's teaching me how to live like off the page. It's not just for the page, and it's not just for like a really cool line break or whatever. It really is a practice for something larger. So that's what I hope it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that very much. I mean, there's often times that I feel like the writing reveals things to me if I'm in that space that I had only an inkling of before, if I let myself go with it. There's a question from Addie. Hello, Addie. Nice to know you're out there. For UTC, I'm curious whether the construction and perhaps assembly of poems changed for you as you developed a more continuous woodworking building practice in life? Or perhaps another way to ask this is, how did that practice influence your poetry practice?
I mean, it kind of, I think I will admit one of my personal shortcomings is I think I was a bit of a snob about writing for a while. And what I mean by that is I was like, poetry is like the best art form. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm like, that's ridiculous. It is a wonderful art form, and I absolutely am personally smitten with it a lot of the times. And holy shit, like the level of craft that it takes. I mean, we sit in spaces all day, like this room, this very fucking room that I'm sitting in is literally a magical experience. Like the fact that I am protected from weather, from noise. I mean, it's like the people who are laboring day in and day out to make our lives livable are they're craftspeople and artists literally all around us that are paid total shit to do truly like life-giving work for us. And it's just, it humbled me, you know, it just totally humbled me and made me see like, oh, you think you're a poet? Try to hang drywall. Like, just try. Like, you know, which is supposedly one of the simpler, you know, like things to do in maybe like, you know, building house world. And it's like, oh no, patch a hole, see how that goes for you. Like, you know, just keep the air out of your room. Like, you're just like, oh shit, I don't know anything. So it's incredible to just, I think one of the things that it's really done, and there's sort of a theory of this, and then there's like the reality of this, which is like, at least my experience of academia is there's a lot of theory around like being a beginner or not knowing or sort of experiencing curiosity. And then there's really entering a space, like go into a space where you really and truly don't know a damn thing. Like go into places where you don't know. And that's a visceral experience. And I get why we might want to not do that, you know, like there's all sorts of reasons to not want to do that. And for anyone with any sort of privilege, I think it's a good practice.
Well, actually, that brings me, thanks for that, TC, to ask you just maybe one last question, because we're at our time. But the genesis, so much of your practice has been to talk to people who you may have very strong disagreements with. And your empathy and your willingness really strikes me as an act of humility, I guess. But can you talk about that, and maybe in relation to your work, your life?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So the whole philosophy of people, not things, they're coupled with practices. And what you're saying that I do, I could not do it without breaking down these barriers in myself, the same barriers I showed you all. Those barriers are of fear, control, barrier to self-love, barrier to communication. So when you see me, there's a unreleased documentary called Mississippi Turning, where I am engaging neo-Confederates. We are sitting around a table. These are bringing each other to the table around the Mississippi state flag that had the Confederate emblem in it. They wanted to see it stay the same. We wanted to see it change. You know, Mississippi's 40% Black. It does not represent us. I realized that they were taught a different history. I realized that we are all the sum of our ideologies. I realized that it's not about changing anyone's mind, but we can change people's hearts. But in order to truly believe that in myself, can my heart change? Is it possible for my heart to change towards these folks who, I grew up, my family are survivors of direct violence from white supremacists, KKK, White Citizens Council in Mississippi, as recent as my grandfather, who died at age 42. He was a civil rights activist, Reverend Clyde Briggs is his name. Educating Black people to vote, taking people to voting centers so that they wouldn't get killed, like creating these transport envoys. But anyway, I was harboring something against these folks. And a generalization in my head, generalization is the killer of humanity. And as diverse as I am, my mama's white, my daddy's Black, both converted to Islam before I was born. I was taught about the Torah, I was taught about the gospel and the Quran, and I'm queer in the Deep South, all of that. I still harbored prejudice. And I said, wow, if I could still harbor it, how do I change that? How do I reprogram? How do I see these people as complex human beings worthy of dignity first and foremost? Because that is the basis of the philosophy of people, not things. So I developed practices, meditations, affirmations, journal entries. That's all in the philosophy that I shared, because I needed to unblock myself. And only then can I sit across and hear what you have to say. If you grew up with a Confederate ideology, a lot of it white supremacist ideology, I'm just curious. Like, you seem like a decent dude. You show me respect when we talk. What did you learn out of childlike curiosity? I just wanted to know. And that kind of just grew from there, these civil discourse sessions, to me engaging Proud Boys when I was on national tour with Vote Common Good, and appealing to people's humanity, showing people humanity who might have lost their humanity through this journey, the Stone Roses journey that we're on, and realizing that we're all just trying to figure it out. And I'm not without my faults either, and without my prejudice. I've done so much work to break things down in myself, because it starts with us. And I can't look and point at anybody else, until I really look at myself.
Thank you. When's the film coming out? When will it come?
So Mississippi Turning is unreleased. We're still looking for a distributor and a partner to take it to the world. So I'm not sure, but it's been done for a lot of years. Anjanou Ellis, Oscar-nominated actress, is the executive producer of it. She just did Ava DuVernay's Origin, about the caste system, which is an amazing film that's coming out, I think, in February. Everyone has to go see it, because it really breaks down, like, we think it's about race in this nation, right? But yes, whether it's the Holocaust against Jewish folks, dehumanizing them, or in India with the caste system, like, it's a deeper hierarchy that we need to break down.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, this evening can go on. I really would love to sit with you and talk for the rest of the night, but I know that Charis has limits, and so thank you both. Can you come back in and join us? Are you there?
Yes, thank you both. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I want to make sure folks know they can buy everyone's books by clicking this teal link. Although, TC, your newest book, can you tell folks how they can buy it directly from you or from your distributor? Because we have your previous books, but not your newest book, and I want to make sure folks can get that. But Genesis' book is right here. And okay, boom. TC has put it in the chat. So buy TC's newest book directly from him. Buy Genesis' new book directly from Charis, and TC's backlist from Charis. It really does help us when you do those things. Helps us get to do cool events. Of course, you can buy Sam's backlist as well from Charis. Be on the lookout for future events. So next week, Sam, do you want to say who's coming next month?
Sure. We're actually not going to have an event in February.
Oh, that's right.
Crosses over with a big literary conference, so we've decided. But in March, it will be an in-person event. It will also be live streamed, so those of you in Tucson or wherever you are can can see it. But Soretta Morgan and Nicholas Goodley are going to be our featured writers. They're both now local to the Atlanta area, and it's going to be an amazing, amazing reading. So that is March, and we look forward to seeing you there. In April for National Poetry Month, we will have C.A. Conrad will be reading, and we're still working on our that pairing. So be there. And then in May, we are going to feature, there's a new anthology out called Essential Queer Voices of the United States. And we're going to have the publisher, Green Linden Press, Christopher Nelson, and as well as local folks who are part of that anthology will be reading as well. TC is a part of that anthology, and it's just about to be released, I believe. I'm not sure what the actual release date is, but it's today or tomorrow or very soon. Anyway, thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you all so much. Stay safe and well, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.